a second. It's spinning. There we go. All right. We are live. We'll give a couple minutes here as we see people joining. It'll let me know, and we'll welcome them. How's the weather in Harlingen?
It's nice. Yeah. Right now it's in the 80s, but we get a cold front. I guess you all received probably the cold front a week ago, so it's barely arriving into deep South Texas.
Yeah.
It comes in tomorrow night, I think it is, and it gets into the upper 40s Friday night for Friday night football, so we're excited.
Okay, that's cold for down in Harlingen.
Warm next week.
Yeah, then it goes back to the 80s and 90s the following week, so
it's
not exciting.
Yeah,
so,
well, we do have... It looks like we do have some initial people joining us, which is awesome. If you are joining us, just a couple things. One, over on the right-hand side, there's a chat. And all of those messages are private. Only I see them, but would love it if you'd introduce yourself. What's your name? Where are you watching from? Love to welcome people that way. It's also a place where you can ask any question during the webinar today. Of our guests talking about implementation, talking about staff buy-in, that famous staff buy-in, sometimes roadblock, but key to success in so many areas. And so please do introduce yourself and know that you can ask a question at any time related to that. In just a minute, we're going to start with a video, and then we'll kick it off officially. And that video is connected to our friends here in Harlingen and the work that they've been doing. And just to make sure that people can hear us and they're working, if you would introduce yourself and say, I can hear you, that'd be great. So the first people to be brave enough to put something into the chat would be awesome. And then we'll get going, making sure that this is working smoothly. Let's see. I think we have a few people joining us early. The chat, there it is. Yay, okay, it works. Cindy from Lafayette, Colorado, or Higginsville, Missouri, excuse me. Higginsville, Missouri, welcome. First in, Cindy, nice. Leslie can hear, great, thank you. Candy can hear, Carrie, I can hear you, great. Okay, we're good. Well, thanks for being here live. I'm going to throw on a video here to start. We'll remind people again when we come back to introduce themselves on the right-hand side, to feel free to ask questions. But I'm going to jump over here to a video to kick off this webinar, and then we'll introduce our guests, and we will officially get going.
We were just all here going through the motions. Like, teachers were here to teach, students were here to learn. CharacterStrong is what we needed. It's not because our kids are bad. They just need to, we need to model it for them.
CharacterStrong came by way of Veronica Hunt, my student council sponsor, who had seen it upstate somewhere. And so she invited me to come to an overnight workshop in Houston.
When we came back from our training session, of course, Mrs. Munoz loved it as much as I did.
And I came back really excited.
I knew coming back from that training session that having her on my side and, pitching it to administrators, in the district, at the district level, that they would believe in her as well.
But I knew that implementing a program like this, especially at a high school the size of our high school, was going to be a challenge. We thought it through and decided that we needed to gain some momentum with some of our teachers.
And I believe we had a faculty meeting the week after and told them about it and presented it to them there. And she said, CharacterStrong's coming. We're preparing for it. We're going to buy the program. We're going to, embed it into our curriculum. And of course, some people came and asked me, like, hey, what is this all about?
I decided to identify some teachers, some coaches that had came from all different walks. And so I invited them to take this trip with us. And so we ended up going to a conference in San Marcos where both John Norland and Houston Kraft were there. That, I would have to say, was the moment that the program really gained momentum. Because once you get teachers excited, they can come back and really share that with their fellow colleagues.
Because of course I can tell them, and Mrs. Munivas and other administrators can tell them about CharacterStrong, but hearing it from John and Houston themselves, it's a different story.
That sustained us and really got us going up until John Norland came later that year in February. And also provided training for the teachers.
Once he came and did, he worked with our kids and he worked with our staff, I feel like people are like, oh, this is what it's all about.
It was not a perfect system. We have over 130 teachers on our campus, so there's going to be some resistance, there's going to be some naysayers, there's going to be those that say, what now? Every year it's something new.
And yeah, we're in year 2, but I mean, it's baby steps.
The key to the success that I think that we've had with the program is persistence, and I know that the word relentless kindness has come on.
This isn't adding to your plate, this is the plate.
It's being very strategic in what we do, from the schedule being built in to knowing that it's a non-negotiable as part of your curriculum. Daily announcements on the days that it's CharacterStrong. I start in the morning with my words of wisdom, and if it's a CharacterStrong day, I remind them we're on a modified bell schedule. The day before, I get on the announcements. Teachers, be sure you review your lessons. We're doing CharacterStrong tomorrow. Be sure everybody's ready.
As far as CharacterStrong, if we work on ourselves as teachers, we're going to be working on the kids. So it's an all-inclusive approach.
Let's look at the whole picture and look at beyond ourselves. How can we fix our society and our community if all we're focused on is graduating with diplomas?
People have been more social, want to interact with one another.
The same people that you treat outside of school, they're the same people also inside of school, and you're going to grow up one day and you all are going to share the world.
Because students are not able to have conversations with each other, they feel free to ask teachers questions in an appropriate, respectful manner.
It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how you live now. If you put in the work, effort, you can, make a change in your life for the positive.
It's helping kids, and not just kids, it's adults as well, strengthening like commitment and empathy and kindness and loyalty and truthfulness and selflessness, like just strengthening those skills so that our kids are better prepared for everything that's out there in the real world.
Right. I love every time watching that video more than anything else to listen to the intentionality that has been a part of the ongoing, knowing that it never ends, the ongoing implementation work that our friends in the Harlingen School District know so well about. And so I'd like to officially welcome our special guests, Veronica Hunt, Student Council Advisor, amongst many other things. And please do share those different hats that you wear as well. But at Harlingen High School, and then Joseph Villarreal, the Assistant Superintendent of the Harlingen School District. Welcome to the CharacterStrong webinar and staff buy-in.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, and hello to all the viewers out there.
Yeah, and please do, for those that maybe came in during that video, please do introduce yourself on the right-hand side. Those are all private messages, but it's great to see who is here and where you're listening and watching from. Many do watch these after as well, but if you're here live, we always like to incentivize that. And so as we dig in, one of the things that we'd like to give away is some regional training spots. Those were mentioned in the video, some of those touch points that can be there to really help, not just with staff buy-in, but building champions in your building, in your district. And the way that we're going to give away some of those is through just some thoughtful questions that are being asked today. So as you're listening to Harlingen's story and the wisdom that they've gained from experience, ask a question on that right-hand side, and we'll pull a couple of those questions to give away some training spots by the end. So thank you for being with us live as we talk about implementing something that for many schools, We know that we want to do it. It's just a lot of times, how do we do it? It's not usually that we're against it. It's how do we do it with everything else that is on our plate. And so really what we're talking about here today is a couple things. The main focus is how do we get staff buy-in, because we know that that is one of the most important, if not the most important piece to success when it comes to really moving the work forward of infusing social emotional learning into the daily fabric of our school, as well as getting fidelity with teaching a tier 1, which remember tier 1 is what we're doing for all. So it's all staff, all students, but implementing a tier 1 social emotional learning, we would say meets character development curricula. So our CharacterStrong Advisory Program, so that you know what we're speaking about, is grades 6 through 12, vertically aligned. So it's not the same lessons every single year. And each, at the middle and high school level, there's 100 lessons. So at the middle level, 6 through 8, there's 35 lessons per grade level. And at the high school level, 25 lessons per grade level, 9 through 12. Once again, all vertically aligned. Key for us and really important, built by teachers for teachers. It needs to be people who actually have been in the work to know whether it has a better chance of actually working and taking, along with a lot of higher ed support that we receive to make sure that it is strong content. It is plug and play as much as we humanly can. We're always looking at that. How can we make it easier to implement? Because if it's one more prep, we all know it's not going to work. And anything extra that we do is going to feel like one more prep. But how do we eliminate as much of that as possible so that it isn't one more prep of lots of extra work? Because fidelity is key, right? That the actual, our students actually receiving it. And the goal there would be the more we become familiar with it, the more that teachers will start to make it their own, and it'll become natural. One of my favorite lines with plug and play is this: when people say, well, you know, that kind of feels like it's a little bit canned, you know, like, because it's say this, ask this. And what I always say to that is, yeah, but you can't have it both ways. So we don't like it to be canned, but we also don't have the time to create a vertically aligned start to finish right curricula. And so the goal there is that by starting with as plug and play as possible, then people will organically, naturally start to make it more their own. So here we are, Harlingen High School, a case study on staff buy-in. We could have a case study with you all in many different areas, but this one, because it's one of the number one roadblocks that we hear about, is the one that we wanted to talk about today. So Veronica and Joseph, maybe you could start by just giving us a little bit of the overview of the journey that you have been on in this area.
So at Harlingen High School, we are on year 3 of implementing the curriculum. Back in 2017, for me, it was, like you saw in the video, asking my former principal to go to a training with me and getting her buy-in first, and then her coming back and presenting it at the administrative level to our central office. And once that happened, that first year, what happened in 2017, 2018 school year, and it was brand new for us. We were so excited. My kids were even excited because they had met you in Houston before, and they were really excited for the CharacterStrong program. And then year 2 in the 2018, 2019 school year, our middle school feeder schools started their program, CharacterStrong program. And so now it's more vertically aligned. They see it in middle school, and by the time they get to the high school, they would have already practiced CharacterStrong. And like I said, it's year 3 for us, but it's actually year 1 for our whole district. So now every secondary school in our district is implementing CharacterStrong. And so we're really excited about that.
And it was a no-brainer when it came to getting other campuses involved and getting them on the journey to CharacterStrong because of the successes that Harlingen High School was having and their social media presence. Everybody across the district was seeing their successes, was seeing the results. And so they're the ones that really wanted to jump on board with CharacterStrong. So when I was approached with the idea by the former principal, I was a go, saw it real quick. I said, this is it. We need this. And she, was a strong advocate for the program. So like I said, it was a go. And then once, the roadblocks, and we're going to get to those probably in a little bit, were few and far between. The campus hit the road hard, and they, implemented it with fidelity. and then other campuses saw it. They saw the difference it was making. So they're the ones that said, we want to do this, as opposed to it coming from the top down. In essence, it was coming from the bottom up. And so, that is pretty much how we were able to get the staff buy-in from the other campuses, just looking at the results of Harlingen High School.
That's great. So just to even kind of put a spotlight on a couple things, and then feel free to even bring some of this more back in later to add to it. But some of the things I heard, that there was some early adopters, not even just at Harlingen High School start, but some early adopters in the sense of some early champions, like a small number of people, 1 to 2 people who are like, this is good. And it needs to move beyond just one individual classroom or program and then going to a key champion. I want to acknowledge the role, the important role that the principal plays. And so many times of being able to say, yes, this is good, and then to help guide that forward. And that you had an early adopter in Harlingen High School that then really set the stage for other schools because of the success they were having, and so that it doesn't get missed. I heard you say that social media piece, and I think that is so key. I hope that you bring that in as we talk more, because I remember seeing early on and continue to see the story that you're telling the community, right? Your general community, as well as further outside of that, of the intentional work you're doing. And especially with stuff around CharacterStrong, because it's around focusing on the whole child. It's about building community. And how many times when we don't tell our story do others tell our story, right? And so that success, I love that, helped to make it, in quotes, more of a no-brainer for other schools to come on because of that work. So let's keep digging in. So let's talk then, because I love it, even in the video. Hey, of course, we had roadblocks. Of course, he wasn't on board at first, and it's an ongoing piece. So talk to me about some of the roadblocks that you faced at any stage along the journey.
I think for me, it was, again, talking to my principal and asking her to join me in that training, because I knew once she observed and went through the training, then she would be the key person to help me sell it to, our administrators here. And once we started the program, everybody was trying to get a feel to it, like the staff, like, okay, well, we have to implement CharacterStrong. We have to do these lessons. And I know you're going to address it a little further down as well, the staff buy-in. But once we had you come down to see us and do a training with our students and then do training with our staff through PLC, then they understood what CharacterStrong was all about. And so then we had that staff buy-in at that point.
And when it came, and just because you came down and Houston has come down to work with some of our staff members, doesn't mean that that's the necessity of the program, right? It's just a matter of teachers, students seeing it in action, seeing the results. And so, the buy-in, is a result of that. When we look at the roadblocks and when you look at maybe some teachers that are holdouts, one of the things that sometimes comes in is that you're adding something else to my plate. And like Veronica likes to say, it's not something else, it is your plate, because this type of instruction informs your instruction in the classroom, and it makes your day, it makes it a lot easier for teachers to be able to instruct. And the proof is in the pudding. We are, in essence, once a week at Harlingen High School, they're implementing this program 30 minutes a day. And so, yes, is it less time instructing in the areas of chemistry, AP, U.S. history, things along that nature? It is. But guess what? Test results have increased at Harlingen High School. And that's because there is less instruction, 30 minutes a week, that's it, that they're getting direct instruction in these core classes. But the fact that they're getting this character education, it's influencing in a positive manner the other types of instruction that's going on in the classrooms. And so, that was kind of the roadblocks that you have from some teachers, is that you're taking some classroom time away from me. Not really. We're just educating the whole child.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. And so as I even follow up with some questions, anybody who's here live, like anything around a roadblock that either you're facing or could foresee, feel free to ask a question about any, even if it's not been directly addressed here, because maybe they can connect with it or answer. So if you have a question around any roadblocks that you're thinking about that I might be able to answer, or Veronica or Joseph, please do ask it. But when I think about a couple of notes that I made here, bring me back to the training, because you said, that was an important piece, because then it was, right, more like, oh, this is what it is. Talk to me a little bit more specifically. Come back to that part again about when there is so much on an educator's plate, but we believe and say so strongly at our trainings, this is the plate, right? And if we don't make this the plate, what's going to happen is we're going to keep piling things on broken plates, and not just the broken plates of our students, but also the broken plates of our staff. And so when we know that digging into this is important, what is it about the training that helped turn that, do you think, for some of your staff? Was it just like, oh, this is what CharacterStrong's about? Or was it something maybe a little deeper?
Right, because they didn't know what it was all about. We said it's to build character, of course. And then once they looked at the lessons, they understood a little more. But like Mr. Villarreal said, it's not a necessity for you or Houston to come down. So something we did this past summer is that a group of us, 5 teachers from our campus, went to a training in Katy with Houston. And then we turned around and built that in our in-service week coming back to work. So that way they can get a refresher for some of our teachers that were already on campus and have done CharacterStrong. And then for our new teachers as well that had never experienced or seen CharacterStrong before. So having those in-service days or those training days is very important. Even just once a year, just as a refresher, can go over those roadblocks as well.
And for me, and then speaking to other teachers and administrators that went through the training this past summer when we rolled it out at other campuses, it's that social emotional piece that really, made a difference for them, and they really saw the importance and the necessity of doing this. And so, yes, important about building character in students, but what does that mean? What does that look like? How do I contribute to building character in students, right? Because it's kind of we're in a different world now. And when we're dealing with kids and we're educating the whole child, are we able to relate to kids nowadays? And so this type of program allows you to relate to kids because you're getting in touch with their feelings. You're getting in touch with the way they think, with the way they interact with the peers, which is different than when we were in school. And so it allows us to relate better to students as opposed to just standing up there and teaching algebra or teaching chemistry or teaching physics. You're really getting to understand the way students think and the way they feel and the way they interact. And so I think that was really key for teachers, and said, you know what, this is really going to impact instruction in the classroom because I'm being able to build meaningful relationships with my students.
Yeah, so something early on the kids said that they kind of thought, oh, this is kind of cheesy, right? You talk about some of the lessons, you talk about emotions, and they get into like really deep conversations. But by the time the end of the school year came around in that year one, they bonded together and they grew as a family. And those conversations they had in those last lessons for reflection, they said they felt the students in that CharacterStrong classroom felt more like family than their own family at home, because they had those deep conversations throughout the school year.
Yeah, and a lot of times what many students experience, what many people experience, is not really that kind of close connection experience. And I think, when it's authentically delivered and people and students realize this is not something that's going away, we're going to learn as we go, but this is a part of who we are, this is important, that once you can get some of that traction, I think a lot of times you do find those golden nuggets of people just like that kind of reflection is huge. I mean, how big is that statement you just shared? Like, I feel closer to this group sometimes than I do my own family. And although we want obviously the family connection there, I get that. But that is a big statement that there are many students in our country and beyond that don't feel that sense of community. And so being able to do that, and yet to come back to it, like Joseph, you said, we're talking once a week, 30 minutes, right? And be able to, with consistency, we know that it actually extends beyond that 30 minutes, right? But that's the actual instructional time. Well, how about this? First question coming in, and I'll ask a follow-up too, but Cindy asked, so we're in year one of implementation. The staff understands the importance of CharacterStrong and SEL, but they're still reluctant because it seems, in quotes, hard. And Cindy, as I asked this, maybe you could even clarify, even more specifically, what parts are hard, right? Just because drilling down is helpful. It says some students haven't bought in, and it's difficult for our staff to allow them to, in quotes, opt out of some activities without it becoming a power struggle. How have you handled students not participating So even if it's a part of that, and I can respond as well, but have you experienced that, and or what are some of the things that you've done, like Veronica, in your own classroom, and or Joseph, if you've experienced that in the implementation?
Absolutely. I have actually. In year one, another teacher and we joined forces. I had a small group, about 12 students. He had about 10. So we joined forces and we joined our classes for our CharacterStrong lessons. And he had one student in his class that really wasn't interested. We tried, we invited him, and he didn't want to participate, which was fine. So he would just sit in the back of the classroom, but he still had to, pay attention. He was still listening to our conversations. And then towards the end of the school year, every once in a while, he would step in and answer any of the questions or the lesson that we were doing that week. So yeah, there was some reluctance from students, but like I said, yeah, they thought maybe it's kind of cheesy. But if it's practiced with fidelity and the teachers are implementing it weekly, students will understand this is not going anywhere. They're going to get used to it, and they're going to really enjoy it. Like I said, some lessons, it is kind of tough, especially for teachers that are not comfortable talking about their emotions. There are some tough lessons where you do have to, have some deep conversations. But in that, you also grow together and they form bonds. And like I said, those students said they felt more like a family in that classroom because they had those meaningful conversations.
And and that's okay. You're gonna have some reluctant kids. Mm-hmm. We teach in a public school, and so it's inevitable. You may have some kids that are not going to buy in. Maybe they'll buy in the third year, they'll buy in the fourth year. Mm-hmm. But you're going to find that a majority of kids, they're listening. Right. And so it is difficult being a teenager nowadays, and you're dealing with social pressures, whether it be face to face, whether it be on social media, whether it be at home. And so some kids may see it as being cheesy, may see it as it not being cool. But the one thing I like about Harlingen High School is that they have a leadership class. And so it's this tight-knit of students, a close-knit group of students, that they are the ones, in addition, aside from the teachers, that are, spreading that influence and creating that spirit and influence at Harlingen High School. And so they're seeing, the peers are seeing it from them, right? And so they have this group that's very influential that's just slowly spreading. We've gotten businesses involved, in recognizing CharacterStrong Students of the Week. We're Harlingen, Texas, Deep South Texas. Football is big in Texas. So we do commercials on the scoreboard highlighting CharacterStrong Students of the Week. So the buy-in is there from the community, but it all came about because of the social media presence of Harlingen High School and highlighting CharacterStrong. And so granted, they're in their third year, so we didn't, we're not seeing those results until the third year, but we're getting there, right? And so, kind of the mindset that I have is we got to do something different, right? We've been doing the same thing over and over and over again in education. So, let's just try something different. We may not see results for the first year. Maybe we'll gain some traction in the second year. But we're doing something, and we're doing something right. And so as long as we can influence at least one student, we're good. We feel great. We feel good.
So, and key here, at least you're doing something, right? And then we tweak and we learn, and at least we're doing something versus not at all. A couple follow-up pieces, and I appreciate Cindy clarified one piece, but and then I'll give a potential facilitation tip that might be helpful for certain staffs. But one, she said, when it comes to the hard, it's difficult for staff because it's out of their comfort zone. That's good clarification. And so a couple things just to identify. One, Cindy's identifying that they're in year one of implementation. Well, that makes sense, right? That makes a lot of sense, especially in year one. And what I would say, even with students who were teaching these relationship skills, emotional intelligence skills, unfortunately, a lot of times this work will get a tag this is the touchy-feely stuff. And that drives me nuts, but I also understand from behavioral psychology, there's always a reason for every behavior. A way of translating that for some adults is I'm saying that because I'm uncomfortable with it. And because I'm uncomfortable with it because I wasn't necessarily exposed to it, right? And or have been given a strong example of what it looks like to identify my emotions, how to really connect with other human beings one-on-one, then I'll say things like this is touchy-feely. But you ask any group of educators, does that mean that it's bad? Right. And everyone's like, no, it doesn't mean that it's bad. I say, well, how do you take something that is uncomfortable and make it more comfortable? And everybody knows the answer. We need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. The answer is you got to do it again. The key to fluency is repetition. The key to getting outside our comfort zone is that you do it again, that you give people, and that you're always finding ways. And I love, Cindy said, they role model the lessons, right? They're doing that work that they need to do. So it's not just dropping it in front of staff. And I would just say, trust that process, because staff will gradually become more comfortable with it along the way. Yeah, Joseph.
And one thing I want to add too is, a suggestion is you team up a counselor and a teacher, because sometimes the counselors, they're trained in that, right? And so they could present the lesson together, or take a, teacher that's bought in, and they can team teach, lessons for a good couple of weeks, combine their classes until that teacher begins to feel comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one tip that I would give that comes from a background that I've had in like experiential learning for over 20 years, many of which is spent here in the woods of Washington State. We've got ropes courses. And when I say ropes courses, for those that are like, oh, geez, don't go there, I'm not talking about the ropes courses that are like way off the ground and you're wearing a climbing harness and jumping off towards like a trapeze thing. And I know that those are ropes courses that are out there. That's called high ropes. But there's a low ropes course that is more team building focus, where you are on the ground and there's initiatives. And one of the philosophies that really like stayed with me in facilitation, especially when it comes to this work, because a lot of it is experiential, is the concept of challenge by choices. And I want to say that again, because early on in experiential learning, we would use the mindset of challenge by choice. And you would set the tone, right? This is challenge by choice. But the problem with challenge by choice is that it feels like it's either all in or all out. And the importance there of challenge by choices is that when I set this up with my students, them knowing that they always have many different choices that they can make in terms of the level of their involvement. And if they're not super comfortable with something or not, that's okay. You have that choice. You also have other choices that you can make with, even though I may not participate in this activity, I can still make the choice to be present, to learn from other people, right? To hear what they're having to say. And it doesn't mean that we might not have conversations about those choices, say at the end of class or in a private setting, especially if it is disrupting other people's learning. But if it's not disrupting other people's learning, I love that idea of like front loading with the idea of challenge by choices, because I can lean on that instead of having a power struggle. And a lot of times I love that you shared that, Veronica, like when they realize over time that this is something not only that's not going away, but something that we believe in, something that is good, not just for them, but I think that this is an important piece to bring in, that like, who needs this work, right? Like, who needs this work? And even in the video, I think David shared it from one of your middle schools, right? David, who said like, when we do our own work, right? And that's the key, like social emotional learning is not just for students. It's also for the adults. And the number one way that we're going to teach it is to role model it, right? So like, this is an all-inclusive approach to this. It's not just for our students by teaching it, right? We have to go after it ourselves. And I just want to acknowledge, I think that that's an important piece. How about this? To keep it moving, couple questions. Carrie asked, does your site or sites, do they do the lesson all on the same day? So let me say, does the site do the lesson all the same day? So maybe there's, I don't know if Carrie's saying like, does everybody, let's go from a couple of different angles. Does everybody teach it on the same day as the first angle?
Right. So we have like CharacterStrong days. And for us, for the most part, it's on Wednesdays. And everybody implements that advisory lesson for that day, for that week. So we're all implementing the same lesson. When they go to their next class, they can still have those discussions like, hey, what did you learn in your CharacterStrong class? And it's the exact same thing that we all did on campus. Not until, because our freshman academy now is going to be practicing CharacterStrong lessons. And so they're going to start with the year 1 advisory lessons. And then by the time it progresses to us, we can do the 2, 3, and year 4. But right now, like I said, since we all started in year 1 3 years ago, we did sophomores, juniors, and seniors did year 1, the freshman lesson. Then we all did year 2 together last year. And so this year we divided a little bit more with the juniors and seniors seeing year 3, but our sophomores are starting at year 1 because they had never seen CharacterStrong. Yeah. So this is that only the first year we're trying this out so that our sophomore students can see those first lessons because they're going to be with us for 3 years. And then our juniors and seniors had already seen those year 1 and 2 lessons and we're on year 3 with them.
Good. Yeah, and a couple of things there. Just wanted to note that there are different ways that you can implement, and I love that you explained that you took more of the year 1 model where everybody was doing that, and then everybody's doing year 2, where sometimes schools and districts will like drop everybody into their grade level to start. At the middle level, I feel like that's much easier. You could literally drop people into the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it will work easier. At the high school level, you could do it, but you'd have to like intentionally bring in some lessons, say from the 9th grade, that really build upon themselves in a super intentional way over the 4 years to be successful. But the key is that it is customizable in that way. And I love hearing that that was your approach. Just to make sure that I hit it, in case Carrie was asking from a different angle, do you find that like you get through the lesson in one day, right? It's a once a week, like you said. And if they don't get through it, is it just kind of, well, at least we got through what we did, and then the next week we would go on to the next lesson, right? Is that kind of how it's worked?
So for the first 2 years, we were a little more intentional because we wanted to make sure that all of our staff was implementing the curriculum. So what we did is we modified our bell schedule. We kind of borrowed 10 minutes from each period and then added it to our advisory period, which is in the middle of the day, which is our 3rd period class. So that was the one class that we see each day for 45 minutes. And so those extra 10 minutes that we borrowed from the other 4 classes extended that class to a 90-minute period. So half of that class was still your content, your math, science, social studies, English content. And then the other half of that class was the CharacterStrong lesson. Yeah. And that was, again, it was more intentional to make sure that all of our staff was implemented. There was no excuse like, oh, there's no time. We were teaching our content. We ran out of time. We didn't get to the CharacterStrong lesson. No, there was time built in for it. And we are all implementing that CharacterStrong lesson.
And for those traditional, our middle schools are on a traditional schedule and the classes are 51 minutes. Same concept. They shaved off 5 minutes from all the class periods and they added it to their advisory period. And so they're able to do the CharacterStrong during those extra minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And just to put a spotlight on it, what I heard you say earlier, Joseph, and I think it connects to this, is like, okay, man, you're taking 5 minutes from my content class. And then what I heard from you is we're actually getting time back. And I think the technical term that Dr. Clayton Cook uses is more like there's a big difference between TDI, time dedicated to instruction, and AET, academic engaged time. And when you have more engagement because you're building that community and people actually more want to be there versus feel like they have to be here. And don't get me wrong, there are going to be some students in certain subject areas that even if you didn't do community building, they're going to be super excited about, say, English because they super love that, or math or science. But not all students, and not all students in all subject areas, right? So how do you create an environment where I'm more likely to be engaged? And even though I took some of that time, we're actually getting time back. And there's so much evidence to back that up that even doing like one thing, greeting students at the door intentionally, and doing that in an intentional way can gain back 20% more academic engaged time in an average hour-long class. Well, it's like 10 to 12 minutes. We'll start adding that up quickly in a multi-period day, and you're getting a lot of time back. And so I just really feel passionate about that side, that it's not enough sometimes to just say it. You have to lead that work, which means you have to build that case. You have to stand strong. This is why we're doing this with our staff so that they know, and it's not going away. And so I appreciate that you brought that up. A couple quick questions as they're coming in. I love the interactive. Someone asked, let's see, who pays for the incentives? We can't expect our teachers to fund the rewards. I have a couple thoughts on that, but what have you done in regards to the incentives?
Sure. Yeah. No. We were able to give campuses some funding to be able to purchase incentives for students. Just to build excitement. There's also a fundraising that goes on. And that money goes into the principal's activity account, so the principal's also to provide incentives. So it helps. That we have. Including myself. At the main office. Providing that support to the campus to be able to do that, but also the fundraising that goes on the campuses.
Good. And I appreciate the question. The question is very authentic because many people experience that, and this person's not saying it, but this is where I push hard on this one. It's so much a mindset piece. And it's like, it's easy to go like, oh, we can't do that because we can't expect our teachers to do this. It's like, time out for a second. Let's look at it from a different angle. I can guarantee you in every community that there's a business community that if they knew that you were intentionally teaching soft skills, social emotional learning, and going after that piece, what they would love to see in the community, there are people in your community that will right now write you a check and say, here's money to get those incentives. right? I know that because I lived in the student council world, and when we went for intentional things, not just give us money just because, no, here's what we're doing and here's why we need it. I can guarantee you right now the money is there. All you got to do is that intentional reach out, and you're now building connections to your community who want to see that this is happening, because it's not a hard sell to the business community. They will tell you that the soft skills, the relationship skills are the new hard skills. And what students are coming to them right out of high school, trade programs, colleges, they're not coming with the soft skills. So if you intentionally do that, you can get a lot of support from your business community. Let's see here.
Well, also, I just want to add real quick, and that's not necessary. You soon find that students and staff look forward to this. And, it's not going to be all the students, it's not going to be all the staff, but that they look forward to it. So it becomes very intrinsic, the motivation.
Yeah, and you're right, a combo of both. It can't help it at the beginning to get some fun energy around it, but the goal would be that you're not needing that as much for sure. Let's see. This is a great question, and I could have a response to it, but interested in what you think. This person asked, do you allow teachers to opt out and instead let another teacher, in quote, give the lesson if the primary teacher isn't into, I love this, the touchy-feely?
Right.
Yeah. I don't think we've allowed that, but like I said, in our year one, I had a teacher that joined me in my classroom, and I pretty much taught all of the lessons. He would key in and say, a few things here and there. And he paid me the biggest compliment because he is, a 30+ year teacher. He was actually our teacher of the year 2 years ago, and I admire him. He's been around for a long time, and he's been in the classroom, and he's seen, things come and go, different curriculum, different things that we have to do. But he actually really enjoys CharacterStrong. And what he told me at the end of that school year was that he learned so much from me, a 9-year, 10-year teacher from a 35-year teacher, a veteran, and he paid me that compliment. He said he learned so much through those lessons. But yeah, absolutely, join forces. Combine your classrooms, even if they're small classrooms, and that way you get two different perspectives from two different teachers. Yep. But no, we've never had a teacher that said, I'm not doing this.
The initiative is going to live or die on the principal's desk. And so that's the most important part, looking at it from the big picture, looking at it from the main office, is that if the principal's not bought in, it's not going to work.
That's right.
We're fortunate over here in Harlingen where we have that buy-in from every single administrator. So they identified, they knew who those teachers were going to be. And you know what? I'm going to position myself in that classroom. I'm going to send a counselor into that classroom. I'm going to send a teacher that's really bought into that classroom to make sure that it's getting done. And I can also model it if I have, some doubts or I'm just not happy with how it's going in that classroom. I'm going to step in and I'm going to model it too. So that's key, is having that principal buy-in.
Yeah, so good. And I'm actually, even though there's some good questions actually rolling in, which is great, that means this is working well. And I'll bring some of those in more, but to keep us moving, I'll actually move to the next piece in a sec. But I do just want to acknowledge that I think we know that it's all about implementation. We never, ever want to be an organization that says, just drop something in front of people and says, good luck, because that's not responsible in my mind. We need to do the adult work. We need to help with implementation. And so on a regular basis, I would say the two things that come up more than anything else, staff buy-in in what we're doing there. That's why we're talking here today about the pieces. The other is exactly what you said, Joseph, and that is when a building leader is not leading it. They're not leading it forward. So you can have people working really, really hard, but if we're not, from the district level and each other as building leaders, being intentional with what we're doing, it can really help or hinder what is happening. And as much as we know that the highest impact size is what's happening from a teacher to student level, the Wallace Foundation said and came out with a study that second in terms of student success is what's happening from that building principal. And it makes sense. But a lot of times that's what's missing. So let's do this. I'll bring more questions in, but to keep it moving, maybe not, just share this and then I'll keep going through and people can ask more questions. But what do you think were the 3 most important moves? Even if it's not the exact number, what were some of the most important moves that you made, even if it's bringing us back to something you've already shared, but to be successful with this, knowing that it's still ongoing, right?
Yeah, so I think it's real important that I think you should take it from a school, right, perspective, and then I can take it from, main office administrator perspective on those important moves. So I'll let Ms. Hunt go first.
So initially, like I said, when my students met both you and Houston at our TASC, our Texas Association of Student Council conferences, they were actually the ones that convinced me and said, we need CharacterStrong. Like the kids were asking for it. These are my student council, student leadership students. And I said, okay, well, let me see if I can get, our principal to come with me to this training. So it was coming from the students. And then another important move was like having that administrator buy-in. So getting my principal to that training, that day-long training, and getting her buy-in. And then the other piece is that social media piece that Mr. Villarreal talked about, that we were so present and really pushing our CharacterStrong on social media that other schools were able to see what we were doing and were saying, hey, I want to do that too. Like we want to have that on our campus. We want to carry out those lessons as well.
And this wasn't intentional. I think one of the most important moves just happened by accident was having Harlingen High School implement it first, right? And being able to kind of perfect it, having that social media piece so that the other campuses are like, why are we doing this? We're seeing the results on social media. We're seeing the results out in the community. You're seeing a decrease in the number of referrals on that campus. We want that. Secondly was making it a non-negotiable. We had the principal buy-in, so it became a non-negotiable for the classroom teachers saying, this is something that you're going to have to do. It's going in the long run, it's going to produce the results that we want. And so that was another important move. And then I think third, another important move that we're making is that I'm leading PLCs, professional learning communities, and we're just doing it once a semester. We've already did our fall one where we bring in the leadership team from all the campuses. We kind of debrief on where we're at, what have we done, what roadblocks do we have, and then how can we help you get past those roadblocks. And and I thought I was going to have to step in, and it was other campuses saying, I'll go help you. Whatever you need, let me get permission from my principal, or there's an assistant principal there saying that I'll go and help you. I'll help, observe maybe some classrooms and give you suggestions on how we can make this work at your campus. So bringing everyone together was key.
Yeah, I love it. So good. And a couple of things that stood out there. One, we make time for that, which is most important. If we're not making time, and you've mentioned multiple ways in which you're making time for this, along with everything else that you're called to do. And then I love that even though it's not every week or even every month, but the intentional times that you bring the teams together, which one, we know that for traction to happen, for implementation to be successful, you need teaming. And that's an important thought. You need teaming in the buildings. Who are the people that are going to actually keep the work moving forward? So who actually would show up to that meeting from those schools so that you can, from the district level, and I love this, talk about what are the roadblocks and how can we help you remove them. These are all things I want to make sure that we're not missing, that are moves that I'm hearing that were made, and also keys to your success. Before we get into a couple of questions, one, that question that came back to me was, do you allow teachers to opt out? And I think it goes a lot of times to like getting started with something. And one note that I would just make on that is a lot of times people will say from their building, oh, we're having issues with staff buy-in. And I always try to drill people down. Like, what does that mean? How many? Well, there's like 2 or 3 of our teachers who, and it's like, I'm out. You don't have a staff buy-in issue. You don't have a staff buy-in issue. If you've got 80% or more that are ready to go, move. Your kids deserve it, right? And so then, well, do you allow teachers to opt out? It's like, no, that's where leadership matters. And that's where you got to pour in your principal. So the principal should be going in, and one, assuming best intent. There's always a reason for every behavior. So let's go in and let's talk with that teacher. What are the roadblocks? What is it that is like holding you back? And sometimes there might be a legitimate reason that then you're like, hey, oh, great, let's help you remove this roadblock, or let's have you team teach with this person, because maybe they're actually willing, but they're just, something's holding them up, right? And sometimes that could be a conversation. Sometimes it's the extra support. But ultimately what I would say is this, what if someone like ultimately just digs their heels in and says, nope, I'm not doing it, right? Then I would say like someone who really is leading this well and is all in is like, great, I'm teaching it then. And you don't get to go playing somewhere else. You're going to be there with me. And I'm going to teach it right to your kids. Like, we're going to do this together because it's a non-negotiable, which means our kids are getting it. But I'm here to help you, even if it's holding you accountable. And I just think it goes to a couple just key points there, including we need strong leaders. We need to pour into our principals. They should, for example, be coming to these trainings so that they can learn about it, right, and can guide it well. How about this? Just because I'm watching that time closely, we talked about staff buy-in, so this is a good point. If anybody's got questions, and I'll put a couple more questions in front of you here, so feel free to take it any direction. But maybe as well, let's come back to some of the results, even though I know that you mentioned that the academic scores you've noticed have gone up at Harlingen. You mentioned that, Joseph. One of the questions that came here is, let's see, we do our CS lessons during Husker homeroom every Tuesday. I do think the homeroom groups are building stronger relationships with one another, which is awesome. One thing we've started to push is permeating outside the homeroom groups in the common areas and content-based classrooms, at our school events, etc. What suggestions do you have to make the lessons, ideas, behaviors, dares, etc. more visible throughout the week and building not just 40 minutes on Tuesday? And I know you do this well, because I've seen it at Harlingen, so maybe talk a little bit about that.
So we have like a CharacterStrong Wall, and I think it's one of the pictures that you had here on your slide, and it has our CharacterStrong banner, and then it has the dare for the week. There it is. It has the dare for the week, and we've been doing that since we started the CharacterStrong program, because there's a weekly dare embedded in the lessons. So that's there as a reminder as kids, staff, people walk by. Oh, this is this week's dare, and this is what we have to work on. And not just that CharacterStrong Wall, but throughout the school, we have kindness posters. We have character posters. We have the important question, what have you done for others today? That's posted all around school. And that way they're reminded daily of what they have to do.
Yeah, I was at a campus yesterday, one of our middle schools, and they have a wall, students of the week, based on what were you caught doing that was nice or kind. Or did a teacher, mention something about you that was positive? And so they take the kid's picture and they put it on the wall. It's in a nice little frame, and that's the student of the week, based on character. So it's just not, like an academic recognition. It's just, you're just a good person. You have good character. So we're going to recognize you. All of our campus are just highlighting it left and right on social media. And so that's, that's kind of how it spreads. It becomes infectious. But again, it's all by design and it's all intentional. Yep. Because if it's only being done in the classroom and you're not expanding to the common areas and to the hallways, there's going to be less buy-in, because it's like anything else. Yeah, that one teacher that holds out, the teacher's eventually going to give in and say, all right, I'm going to do this because everybody else is doing it. So by allowing it.
Yeah, or even realize, and not to be negative about it, or realize if this is what we're about, at some point, if I'm like so against social emotional learning for students and focus on the whole child, at some point, then that person may just choose, well, I need to go somewhere else that they don't focus on this, because this is not a part of my core values, which seems weird to me, but I just want to have empathy, I guess. Like at some point, it takes care of itself when we realize we're all in, and if I don't want to be a part of that, I'll go find a place that isn't about that.
Yeah, right. And then on CharacterStrong days at the all the teachers wear T-shirts, right? CharacterStrong T-shirts, and so all the students know, and they sell them to students. It's CharacterStrong Day, so wear your CharacterStrong T-shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Like schools that give away shirts for that, they like have that. Mm-hmm. Yep. As a way to even give to students. How about this? Some quick fire here, as I'm noticing. Like, man, that time went fast because this is a topic we could really get into, and I appreciate your time. Maybe quick fire responses here. So. Wow, I bet there were teachers who used the 90 minutes, so talking about your 90-minute period, to teach their core content. Mm-hmm. How did admin handle the teachers who maybe were not compliant? Sure.
Some of our students would say, no, I didn't do my CharacterStrong lesson today. And so we were, taking note, like, oh yeah, who's your teacher? But our administrator then go do walkthroughs, and it wasn't like, aha, I caught you, you're not doing the CharacterStrong lesson. It's like, okay, well, addressing what's going on in the classroom. Why can't we, implement the lesson for today? Are there roadblocks? How can I help you? Something also Mr. Villarreal mentioned is pairing them up with a counselor. So for us, our year one, whenever a teacher was out of the classroom, like they had a personal day, a sick day, they had a training day, on a CharacterStrong day, our principal assigned a counselor to that classroom to still carry out that lesson. Yeah. That way the kids didn't miss out, and everybody on campus was working on their CharacterStrong lesson that day.
Yeah, and the leadership, organizational leadership brain in me, right? That's my area of focus, expertise is like organizational leadership is simple but not easy here. The simple move is this. Have I articulated to the staff why this work is important? Have I articulated that we're going to be coming around and it's not to get you? We're going to be coming around because this is at the core of who we want to be, what we're about, a focus on the whole child. So we're coming around with the expectation that these are being taught during this time. And we're going to get in there because we should be in there. Students should see that this is important enough that we're coming in. We're going to jump into some activities. We're going to be coming by your room, putting our head in because we want to know what's happening, the language that is being shared, right? The conversations that are being had. And if someone isn't teaching it, well, here we go. This is leadership. We're going to have a conversation. I noticed that it didn't get taught, right? Why? Right? Like, we're going to have that conversation. And even to the next one, if someone's gone on that Wednesday, okay, great. The counselor comes in. But I also pick up on the fact that that person's been gone 5 Wednesdays. Well, that's a leadership thing. I'm coming in. Let's talk. You're only gone on Wednesdays. Like,
well, and also not having to, hopefully you don't have to go there, but in Texas, it's in their teacher evaluation, right? What are you doing?
There we go.
Social emotional learning, how are you getting, what kind of culture you're creating in the classroom? So, hate to go there, but, sometimes you have to, as a principal.
Well, and what we evaluate, right, is what we make important as well, right? So if we believe this is important in different ways, it should be a part of what we're observing for, looking for, all of that. How about this real quick? This person came in late. Is it possible for me to see or hear more about the incentives that you used? I think you shared some of those. Anything else that you would add, like different incentives that you've used? I didn't know that like football games and sporting events, it's up on the thing. That's awesome. That was new to me.
Yeah, we have a big combo screen, and there's a local bank that's recognizing CharacterStrong Students of the Week.
Great, I love it. So, and they can reach out too if they wanted like to follow up to get more of a list or things like type of thing.
Absolutely,
share that. How about this? Let's see. How do you approach the lesson delivery if a teacher's absent and we do not have coverage available? You did answer that. Or if we don't have coverage available from our counselors or administration to deliver that lesson, I think ultimately the goal would be, like if you've got a regular sub that is either a permanent sub or you're like making sure that maybe they're the first in there. Do they know? Have they been a part of these trainings? Do you have regular substitutes that are in your buildings on a regular basis, or are we training them up so that they could deliver it?
Or even if you need to combine 3 classes, put them in a lecture hall, put them in a cafeteria,
right.
if with your best teacher, you can handle it that way. I don't think it would be a big issue.
Another thing we've done too is if that teacher's out that day and we don't have a counselor to come in, then they just teach it the next day. I mean, they're still getting their lesson just the next day, but it's still getting taught.
Good point. I like that. Some good thinking there, like even that teaming up piece, because you got people who are rock stars, they could easily handle 60 students if they had to. In there. How about this? I like this question. If you could go back and change one thing you did when rolling this out to your high school staff in year 1, what would it be?
Having you or Houston come sooner. I think it was 6 months in to implementing CharacterStrong that you joined us, and that we had like more of that staff buy-in. But if you or Houston, if that school has the privilege of having you and has the funds available, that would be great. That way students and staff can see what CharacterStrong is all about before even starting.
And I appreciate, thank you for sharing that.
I mean, that's not a necessity, right? It's not a necessity. I think just by saying, being able to identify those key people, formal and informal leaders on that campus, creating that leadership team, sending them to a training, and having them come back and turn it around. That's going to be the most important part.
Right.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, and as a heads up, nothing ever beats obviously in person. But one of the things that we've done that's going to be coming out soon is we have a virtual PD that is at least Houston and I's like voice, face, right? The slides that a team could use. So like we've had people before go, I just need your voice on talking about the why that stuff's so important. And so if we can't because of schedules or whatever else, at least it's another tool, even if it's for the people to listen to, but also that they could use, and it's going to be segmented out like in chunked pieces on different topics. So it's something that could be used over multiple years, and or pieces like, hey, during this next staff meeting, we want this 5-minute piece on the circles of culture, or we want this 5-minute piece on the competencies of social emotional learning. And so that's a piece that would be much more like budget friendly for many, but something that your team, like you said, it's not a necessity to have us come out. What if it was the team that could be guiding it for the people actually at your school in the work, and people support what they help to create? So the more you can get people involved in that, the better. I know that our time is close, and I could keep talking to you all day long. So let me just see if there's any final pieces here. Let's see. How did you measure your staff's buy-in during year one? I know that many do like perception surveys. Was there anything else that you did for measurement?
One thing that we're doing right now, and we're, in our school district, we have 9-week grading periods, is that we just monitor. We have 2 metrics that we're looking at, not to say that it's all based on CharacterStrong, but we're looking at the number of campus referrals over a 3-year period, and we're also looking at the attendance rate. We do offer attendance incentives, but bottom line, if kids like the school, they like the culture of the school, they're going to come to school. So if we see an increase in our attendance, then we feel that we're creating a good culture on the campus. So we're kind of looking at those metrics, but it's also talking to students. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, they're going to tell you the truth. They're not going to lie to you. Right. So that's going to be important that the administrators and teachers that have really bought in talk to kids and get their feedback.
That attendance is so important, because I love Harlingen High School. I love my job. I love going to work and to school every day. And that's how I want students to feel. And because of CharacterStrong, they do form that, that bond with their CharacterStrong group, and they want to be at school. They want to do better. They want to do, self-serving activities, and they want to be a part of a larger community. Yeah. And so that's really increased that attendance piece as well. And if kids are in class, they're in attendance, they're getting the curriculum, not just CharacterStrong, but their, core content, and they're doing better in class as well.
Yeah, that's good. So good. Okay. Here's the thing. A couple last comments here. One, thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Joseph, for being with us. That was awesome. So great to just hear you're in the work every day, and the things that you have done intentionally and continue to do to make a positive impact ultimately for our students, who we know are worth it. And it's hard work, it's purposeful work, but it is totally worth it. And I love this picture of the most recent training that we did down in your area, where you sent different teams and just the faces, many of which we've been able to start developing relationships with, because this doesn't just happen in a one training. It's something that we have to keep going after on what we're doing day to day, as well as what we're doing to continue to build capacity. And so I want to make sure that a couple things at the end. One, we have 2 winners, people who are asking some intentional questions. There were more than this, but we also pull out a couple. One, Roger Allen, as well as Cindy Bentley, winners of a registration for one of our regional trainings. If you make sure to leave your email in the chat. I'm grateful for your questions today that you're asking. If there's a training that is within reach of you and you can get someone there, we'd love to comp that registration for free. Or if you already have someone coming, that you could add another one to keep building capacity. If there's other questions that were left, I'll try to make sure I respond to those offline. And if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our friends in Harlingen and the great work that they are doing. So have a wonderful day, everyone. This will be coming out as a replay so people can watch it again. It'll automatically send you one from the platform. It's called Webinar Jam, but also we do one through YouTube so that you can actually fast forward and stuff, because the Webinar Jam doesn't really allow you to do that as easy. So grateful, and hopefully you can use this in different ways if it's helpful. Have a great day, you guys. Thank you.
John, I want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, you could put my email in that chat. I welcome questions if they need ideas. If they're having trouble with something, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions. If we want, we can do a Zoom meeting. I can get some key figures from the campuses that have been really good at the implementation. We can bring them together and have a short meeting if they want. So, you can feel free to put my email address on that chat, and I'll take those questions. I have no problem.
That's a big offer. I appreciate that. I just put your email in the chat for everybody that's still there. That is awesome. Thank you for making that offer. And if anybody forgets this or loses it, they can always reach out to us and we can send them your way. All right. Have a great rest of your day. I know you're 2 hours ahead of us, so hopefully it's near the end of your day. Know that Educator's Day is never, ever fully done.
and it's a nice 85 degrees over here. We're not cold with you all, so we're
so jealous. All right. Take care.
Thank you,
John. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.